Hi, and welcome to the Tranquil Cottage Knits podcast. I'm your host, Michelle. You can find me on Ravelry as Tranquil Cottage, Instagram is Tranquil Cottage Knits. You can find the blog at www.tranquilcottageKnits.weebly.com, and you can find the Facebook group just by searching Tranquil Cottage Knits in your Facebook search bar. Hi, how are you guys? I just recorded the entire podcast with my mic turned off. Can't believe I did that. Um, so, this is a round two, and we will have to see how this comes out. So, let's see. Where are we? First of all, um, the podcast is a little delayed. My husband came home a couple of days, I want to say like the weekend before Thanksgiving, and he said, somebody in my office has coronavirus, and a couple days later, he's got the symptoms, and next thing you know, I've got the symptoms, and then my mother-in-law gets the symptoms, and we were all down. I got it worse than anybody in the house. I think that is because, people still gotta eat, and dishes still need to be done, and there's laundry that needs to be done, and, it's kind of like if I screech to a halt, so does the whole household. So, I think I got hit harder just because I wouldn't stop and rest. And so my husband, luckily for me, just kind of stepped up to the plate one day. I said, I think I'm gonna need to sleep in tomorrow, and he got up and took care of his mom and did everything that needed to be done and let me sleep in. And I think I had like 3 days that I just crashed out and just slept a lot. And that's, I think, what put me on the mend. It was really funny though. It was like probably about 3 days ago, maybe 4 days ago, I was sitting there. We were sitting in the living room watching Christmas movies. 'Cause it's comforting, and so that's kind of what we've done this time being sick. My husband is actually working from home as he goes through his recovery and quarantine period. But, we were in the living room, and it was my husband, myself, and then my mother-in-law. And, like, all of a sudden, I started, like, looking around, and I'm like, whoa, what, what is this? And, like, it was like an actual switch was flipped, and I came out of this fog. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I could not believe there was such a drastic change that I could feel. And I'm like, still was getting winded, and I kept a headache through the whole process. But it was just like all of a sudden the change was that drastic where I just felt better. And it did not take much to tire me out after that. But the recovery was just like, it was really kind of dramatic for me, to feel this big change. I had definitely had a few days where I was down and out. My December pattern release, I had hoped to have out by December 6th. That was my goal. Being so sick and in such a mental fog, I literally just did not have the energy to work on it. But when I started feeling better, I gotta tell you this story because, I have never been ashamed to admit that I am a hot mess. I just kind of come out with it, let your freak flag fly, right? So I freely admit that I am a hot mess. And so I'm starting to come out of this illness, and like one day I just kind of sat up after really not being able to function. I thought not being able to do anything, and all of a sudden I'm like, I need to knit. I just need to knit. I need to cast on. And, but I didn't have the wherewithal to look through my projects or look through my stuff and find a needle. And, I could not follow a pattern. There was no way. And I knew it. There was just no way. So I messaged Laura. Actually, I may have called her. I think I called her. So I called Laura over at Knitter's Magic and was like, Laura, I need a knit. Give me needles. 16-inch. I don't know what I'm knitting. Just give me 16-inch, size 3 through like 8, 9, something in the. And she's like, are you, are you, are you sure? She's like, are you drunk dialing me? I'm like, no, it's just size 3 through like 8. 8, yeah, that should be good. 16-inch. Zings. Give me all of them. And she's like, are you, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And I should probably be ashamed of this fact. But she has my credit card number on file. I may have a problem, right? So I like, just whatever to charge the card. Just get, I need needles. And so she's like, okay. God bless her. Because I got in the car and like we haven't gone anywhere. We quarantine hardcore, and we respectfully we wore our masks and we hand sanitize, and we've done all of that up until getting sick. Like we were gloving up, masking up, hand sanitizing, doing all of that, washing hands frequently, all the way up to the point where we got sick. And then after we got sick, we're like, we don't go anywhere. Like when we did order food in a couple of times, and it's like I paid for it online, and I'm calling the restaurant. I'm like, I need you to be clear. We are on coronavirus quarantine. Drop the food at the end of the driveway, or at the end of the sidewalk. That we have like a 50-foot sidewalk. I'm like, drop the bags there. Call me when you arrive, I don't want you anywhere near my house. Like, we were trying so hard to be really good about it. But there were some times I literally was running out of food. And, like, I just couldn't cook. There was no energy there. And so there's a couple of times that we got delivery, and like I said, I'd call the place and be like, leave it at the end of the driveway or the end of the curb, or and we'll come out and get it. So poor Laura. So here I am calling her up demanding needles, not knowing what I'm going to knit. Needing to cast on something. Like I needed it for my soul. And so she's just like so awesome. She just handles it, and she's like, let me know when you're on my street and I'll put it outside. And I'm like, okay. Well, I took one of my dogs with me, the big one, Tucker. And so I took him with me. And so I'm like, I text her like, I'm at the light, I'm turning onto your street. And which, if you don't know, is 212 South Loudon in Winchester. But I'm like, here we go, right? I'm on the street. I like have to turn around, get a parking space. I get the parking space, which is like directly across the street from her building. And I see where she's hung the bag outside on the mailbox. So I'm like, I don't want to like, I don't want to contaminate anything, So like I get out, my dog's like pulling me across the street. Come on, Tucker, come on. Runner, we get the bag. As I get the bag and start to head back to the car, I hear knocking on the window and turn around. She's waving at me. So I wave back. Got back in the car. Realize I have a litany of text messages from my husband. So he stayed at home with my mother-in-law. And she has Alzheimer's, and I am her primary care provider. And so he was there with her and the other dog, and he had asked her, you know, as she's watching him like give the dog treats, she's like, Tracy, do you want to give Callie a treat? And she's like, sure. So he gives her a treat for the dog, and she pops it in her mouth. And he's like, no, no! So he freaks out. And he's like trying to get her to spit the treat out. And she's like, what? It's a snack. He gets her to spit the treat out. And the dog's like, oh yeah, that was for me. That was for me. My mother-in-law's putting in an envelope. I'm gonna save this for later, right? He's like, no, that's for the dog. That's for Callie. My mother-in-law's like, yeah. She's closing up the treat in the envelope. The poor dog's trying to nose the envelope. And all of a sudden, it clicks. And I realize, poor Laura. I call her up. I demand needles. I come to pick them up. And hair that had not been washed in like 6 days because I had been so ill. Pajama pants. Slippers. I didn't even put on shoes. Meanwhile, my husband's at home feeding his mom dog treats. I mean, not really, but you know. And I'm like, I called Laura and I'm like, I am so sorry. I didn't realize. Like, it just never dawned on me. I need needles. And shuffle out to the car with the dog. Hop in the car and drive 25 minutes to go get needles, never realizing I'm in my slippers and pajama pants and my hair is a kind of a just one greasy dreadlock. So, if you've ever had one of those moments, just think of this and realize it ain't that bad, right? But we're all on the mend. My mother-in-law, her extent of coronavirus was like, excuse me? I mean, I'm so thankful for it, but like all she got was the barest cough. And she's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. She didn't run a temperature, nothing. My husband is well on the mend and he's going through his quarantine period. He can't return to work until my symptoms are completely gone, for at least 2 days. And, you know, we got to go get our, clear negative corona tests. And anyway, just a hot mess. Hot mess. So, that leads me to what I am wearing. I jokingly refer to this hat as the hat of 1,000 stripes, and I knit it for a friend of mine. And so I knit this on size 3 needles, cast on 144 stitches, and I did the brim in one color, and then I started doing the stripes. And the stripes are either 2 or 3 row, depending on how I was feeling at the moment and how I felt the colors were blending in. And you just knit it for as long as you want it. My friend likes brims that fold up, so double warmth on the ears, and then you do your decreases. Now, I am not a fan for adults of spiral decreases. I don't like the look of it. It's just not my fave. So, I think it's adorable on kids. On patterns like the Odessa hat, it's beautiful. It can be worked into a design really well, but I just really like a symmetrical decrease. And so, how I do mine is, this was 144 stitches, knit 2, purl 2, ribbing, and then once I get to the part where I'm going to start doing my decreases, I shift my stitches over by 1. So I move my stitch marker over by 1, and that my stitch marker indicates the beginning of my round. So I move it over by 1. So now I have a knit two line that is now divided. So one stitch on either side. And then I count out my repeats. And you can basically, as long as it's divisible, you could do a 4-stitch decrease, which kind of gives you or a 4-point decrease, basically, which gives you a little bit of a pointier hat, or you can do an 8. Basically, anything that's going to be divisible by your 144. Easy. And then how I do it is I put a stitch marker at each point that I'm going to need to decrease, so I evenly divide my stitches. And then I do knit one round, and then on my second round of the color, I do a slip slip knit so I have my stitch marker, slip slip knit in pattern across to my next stitch marker, 2 stitches before my next stitch marker, and then I knit 2 together. So then I'm at the next stitch marker, so I slip slip knit in pattern across to the last 2 stitches, knit 2 together. And so I just decrease in that manner all the way around once. And then I change my color, knit a row, decrease a row. Switch color, knit a row, decrease a row. And so that's how I do mine. I did that until I got down to about 24 stitches. And then I swapped to my final color, which you can see here was the blue and the green. So I did that as my final color. And the reason I do it like that is you can see here how my row here just kind of eats up the stitches around it, and it makes for a very even decrease. So now that I've told you about the pattern, the yarn, I love this yarn so much. One of a lot of people say like their favorite workhorse yarn is Lamb's Pride. I have never been a fan of Lamb's Pride just because it's a little too rough for me. I do like a softer yarn. And so my favorite go-to workhorse yarn is Stonehenge Fiber Mill? Stonehenge Fiber Mill worsted. That is my favorite workhorse. That is just my favorite workhorse yarn. It is still a hand wash yarn, so not throwing it in the washing machine, but anybody who I would spend time to knit for knows how to take care of a knit object. They either already knew how to hand care for, nice things, luxury items, or I've taught them how to care properly for hand knits. So everybody I knit for is knitworthy, definitely. So Stonehenge Fiber Mill's worsted line, it's a plied yarn, and so what they do is when they have their mill ends, so their mill end singles, what they do is they ply different colors of the singles together to make a 2-ply yarn that they call Crazy, and it's a sport weight. And so basically, if they have burgundy, they'll put their burgundy on and they'll ply it with one color, and when that color ends, they'll add a different color. And so you run into, like this one, this is a kind of a taupe and a blue, and it ran into, I think it ran into the dark blue. That's the same dark blue with a light blue, and then that ran into that I think lighter blue ran into the green, and so it makes the colors look very, very different. So what I did, because my friend had requested stripes, thin stripes, what I did is I just wound off, I got the ball winder out, and I wound off all of the blue-gray combo. And then when it changed colors into like the light blue, dark blue, I made that a separate ball. And the burgundy and gray was a separate ball. So I ended up with like eight, like maybe eight different mini balls, mini skeins of yarn. And you cannot even tell in this hat, but how, sorry for the hat head. Oh, corona brain. Oh my goodness. You can't even tell that I literally just carried the colors. Like, I'm looking for it now. Where I literally just carried the colors. Here it is. So I literally just carried the colors just straight on up. And you can't even tell because it's a knit 2 purl 2 rib. When you do a knit 2 purl 2, it makes a ridge. So you have your knits which stand up and your purls which recede. And when you carry the yarn up the edge of that, it gets hidden right in that little line where the knit and the purl are offset. So I just carried them straight up. And I had like 6, 7 colors at a time carrying up. And you saw, you can't even really tell. I have to hunt for it myself. So I just carried them straight up. And the cool thing is, weaving in the colors back in, I just kind of carried them back down as well. And it makes it super secure, and it hides all of your yarns, and it's just such an easy technique. So that's what I did, and it has many stripes, and it is warm, and it has a good brim, and my friend really likes it. So that's what I'm wearing today. Again, Tucker, hush it. I've never made any bones about being a hot mess, and being sick just kind of apparently made me more so. So, so I don't even know. But I do hear a train coming, so I'm going to go ahead and end this before it gets here and gets too loud. And if I don't talk to you before Christmas, I hope you guys have an amazing holiday. But it is absolutely my goal to vlog again before the holiday season. Tucker went by. But however you celebrate, I just wish a happy holiday season to you and yours. And I will talk to you soon. Bye. Mwah.